Life on Mars was a popular BBC television crime drama series. It ran over 16 episodes across two series and was first aired between 2006 and 2007. It starred Philip Glenister and John Simm, and it was a mix of sort of Doctor Who time travelling with 1970s Sweeney style policing. Now, the bit we're interested in is the main automotive article, and that was a 1970 something Ford Cortina, and we're going to find out a little bit more about it. Now, this car wasn't exactly as it appeared. To suit the series, it needed to be a car that was around in early 1973, because that was where all the action started. And this car, despite displaying a 1973 plate, which was KJM212K, which, as we can see, doesn't actually exist on DVLA, this car was actually a later model. It was a 1974. Now, how did I find this out? Well, it is in various bits of the internet, but the most interesting one I found was on the Buy Sell Cortina website forum. There was these pictures posted by Maca1 of the car back in 2009 when it was at a show. And on the front we can see KJM, and on the rear we can see the original plate. So now we have a registration number, RUO568N. We can do some investigation on this car. Now, the first point that I found it was on the Buy Sell Cortina forum again, in a post by 83GLS, and this is the very car pictured back in 1997 at the Donington Park Ford Spares Day. Now, you will notice, compared to the car seen in Life on Mars, that this one has square headlamps. Now, the reason for that is this is a 1974 spec 2000E model. Now, for the show, they wanted something to look older than this. An early 1973 car is what they were looking for. So they had to make the car effectively a bit of a bitzer. The main thing they did to make it look older was to swap out those square headlamps for the round quad headlamps and grille from a GXL model, which was from 1973. However, the sort of Cortina, shall we call it, aficionados did spot there were quite a lot of other errors that they didn't correct. For example, it had the wrong dashboard. The dashboard in it should have sloped away from the driver, and it actually had the later flatter dash that was fitted for the Cortina from 74 on. It also very clearly had the E on the rear pillar of the car, and that was actually on the vinyl roof, which wasn't an option on the Cortina of the 1973 era. So there were a few mistakes, but hey, it's all television, so they do their best. And this car itself, according to an article in the Mail in 2007, was sourced by a chap called Vic Humphreys, who worked for a company called Vision Motor Services, and apparently he paid just £2,500 for it, which, as you'll find out later, was quite a bargain. So once the show was finished filming in probably late 2006, what happened to this car? Well, the first thing I picked up on it was in the middle of March. There's this article on the BBC News website that it's been sold through eBay, and the money from it is going to go to Comic Relief charity, and the car itself sold for £12,800. Now, amazingly, just 3 weeks later, that car reappeared as a competition prize in the Daily Mail newspaper, and they were offering you a chance to win it. And basically, it was one of these phone-in competitions where you were charged £1.50 for your phone call, and £1 of that went to the Comic Relief charity. So I suppose if you've got 25,000 entries, you've paid for the car. Or is that me being a little bit cynical? Anyway, we move on to later that year in October 07, and several media outlets report that a chap called Paul Shedden from the West Midlands has purchased this car through eBay. Now, if he's purchased it through eBay, there must have been whoever won it from the competition has then sold it on eBay again. So this car in 2007 went through quite a lot of owners. But back to Paul. He says he purchased the car for £10,000, and he was a massive fan of Life on Mars, and he wanted to really get it out there and let people see it. There's a video here of him at the NEC being interviewed about all the plans he's got for the car and what, you know, how he wants to sort of celebrate Life on Mars as a TV series. And within 3 months, he sold it again. And this article appeared, I got the link through the John Simm Society, and it was the Louth Leader newspaper, which now appears to have been taken over. And there's an article here saying that a chap called Nick Day has purchased the car, and he's up in Lincolnshire, and he says actually he purchased it, saw it advertised on eBay as an auction, managed to do a deal with the chap and picked it up from Birmingham, which is in the West Midlands. So this all neatly ties together. Now, Nick has obviously had ambitions to do something with this car. He was on the local BBC News TV channel, and they did a little feature on him, and shows him here driving it around up in Lincolnshire. And he'd actually gone on, I found the website, which is the official Life on Mars Cortina website, and it says that you'll be able to hire the car for events, etc, etc. However, I did try contacting Nick through this site to try and find out more of what's been happening with the car, and unfortunately I didn't get a reply. And looking through the events page, it doesn't seem to have been updated since 2010, so I'm guessing if you want to hire it or use it, it's probably not available. So to see what the car is currently up to, let's have a quick look at DVLA, and we can see it's showing as being taxed. Of course, it'll be under historic tax now. There's no current MOT data because since 2018 it's been MOT exempt, but we can go back and see what happened to it. Back in 2007, around the time of the sale after the show, it had 66,000 miles on the clock, and a couple of years later in 2009 it had 68,462. Now the reason that's interesting is because in 2016, when it had its last MOT, it also got 68,462 miles on the clock. So I'm guessing there might be a bit of a speedo cable issue there. And if we hop across to our partner's My Car Check, we can see under Keepers that this hasn't changed hands since the 18th of January 2008, and that is when the reports say that Nick Day acquired the car, and the previous change of ownership was July in 2007, so that suits the time that Paul Shedden acquired the car. So overall, it's had quite an interesting history. Oh, one thing I mustn't forget, if you can't afford the whole car, how about this? You could have bought just the front number plate. It was up for auction from a company called The Prop Gallery, and all authenticated, etc. So if you can't have the whole car, maybe you could have had the number plate. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and of course we are going to do the Quattro from Ashes to Ashes, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that one, and in the meantime have a quick look at this video for us.